Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have a very disturbing video to make. Now, I was wrong about Savannah Sparks because I didn't realize how bad the swatting incident was. Okay, and I'm going to put my hand up and say that I was wrong because I went off the information that Savannah and Danesh had put out at the time, basically saying that, this is what swatting really looks like, and they basically told everybody that they got a phone call and they went outside. But Savannah's recently made a post. Brian Carlson posted this video, and she's responding to this comment about why I don't understand why people aren't willing to call the police or FBI for a shooter that's going to act in the near future. And Savannah said this, because unlike you, I've been swatted with guns drawn on my toddler for calling in resources and standing up for others. Now, it was Biloxi State Police and Harrison County.
This morning, I had several police officers, both from Harrison County Sheriff's Department and Biloxi Police Department, at my front door.
Police departments that showed up to her door. Okay, I had no idea that they pointed guns at her toddler's head. Now, clearly, when she was saying earlier, a couple of years ago, when this happened, that she was going to show what swatting looked like.
I'm going to show y'all some of the footage from my doorbell camera of me talking to the detective because I like to be transparent and I know y'all are nosy. I would be too. I also want to use this as an opportunity to show y'all what swatting actually looks like because some people on this app have no idea and use terms they don't know the meaning of and without proof.
Because people are running around with this misconception that, people go in with guns and what the cops go in with guns. It was all... Sorry, I'm a little shaken at the moment. That people go in with guns, and she made it sound like, well, Danesh openly said they actually call you on the phone and you go outside.
I called some sort of authority. I don't remember what it was, but I told them, hey, I might get swatted because I see that there's doxes of me all over the internet. Mm. So if you get a phone call or something about me doing something like that, it's not real. Right. And they go, well, we don't really have a way of keeping track. I'm like, is there like a note you can leave or something? And they're like, the closest SWAT team is so far away that they wouldn't send. It's very far away, hours away. So they were like, they wouldn't send the SWAT team anyway. So I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, fast forward to when it happened. I believe it was in December. I can't remember. Actually, Savannah got swatted first. Mm-hmm. And for her, it was a lot calmer.
I just got to her.
So anyway, back to that. So she got swatted, and hers was it was gentler than mine in a sense that they still had like a bunch of cops show up at her door, and she recorded it on her Ring, and it's still scary because though she didn't get like her door busted in or anything, you got to think like the intention of the person who made that call or made that all happen, their intention was to get everyone in that house killed.
I'm a very old guy now after listening to that very long-winded podcast, but Danesh said Savannah had it easy, and all that happened to him was he was called to come outside. So something is afoot, something doesn't make sense, ladies and gents.
And that's what happened to Savannah, and she was standing at the door with a toddler, and I stupidly thought that she was standing with a toddler at the door because she knew the doorbell camera was there and she was going to use it to garner sympathy online, and I was wrong. I was dead wrong. They pointed the guns at that toddler's head. Now, I've contacted those police departments, and multiple other people have too, over these allegations that they did that. And I've also contacted the FBI, and multiple people have too, because this police department, people really need to get on top of them. They can't be pointing guns at toddlers' heads. So clearly I am making a joke of the whole thing because Savannah Sparks and Danesh both admitted that 2 years ago during this swatting incident that the police showed up, called them, and they went outside. Now, I did point out how Savannah Sparks used her own child as a prop, and she held her child in her hands because she knew the doorbell camera was going to pick it up. And she stood there to garner sympathy online to people. So that child had to sit there while the police were having an adult conversation. Now, I have no doubt she didn't play the parts where the police were probably asking her to go put a child back inside and put the child on the lounge and come and talk to them out there on her own. Her child didn't need to be there to sit there listening to a story about how her mother was going to go on a shooting rampage. You know, that is child abuse. And now she's victimizing her own child yet again. We see the same thing with Danesh Jon Noshirvan. Savannah Sparks and Danesh Jon Noshirvan are child abusers. They victimize their own kids for attention. It's not the first time we've seen content creators do that. Here's an example.
Go like this.
No, Mom, I'm actually seriously crying.
No, I know, but go like this for the video. Go like this. Put one hand up. Go like this. No, go like this. Put your hand like this. But let them see your mouth. Let them see your mouth.
No, Mom, I'm actually crying.
Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
I'm actually crying.
I know. Look at me. Look at me. Look at the camera. Look at the camera.
This woman was trying to get a thumbnail shot using her own kid. Now, I do want to talk about the drama triangle a little bit, because the drama triangle is actually used in cinema a lot. Now, some people may know what it is. It's got obviously 3 corners. In corner 1, you've got victim, that's victimhood. In cinema, that would be the damsel in distress. In corner 2, you have the hero, the savior, the rescuer. And in the top corner, corner 3, you have the persecutor or the villain. Now, it plays out in cinema, so the damsel in distress will be kidnapped by the villain, and Superman, the hero, will come in and save the day. It's used a lot in fictional stories. Now, I'm going to explain to people how Danesh and Savannah both create their content. They use that formula. They use the drama triangle formula. They put themselves in the hero position and the people they're talking about in the villain position, and they put usually a community in the victim spot of that triangle. Now, I'm going to explain how they've done that. So when we look at Felicia Mullins, right? Now, the story with Felicia Mullins, Danesh was trying to be the hero, and you do see him a lot wearing Superman and Spider-Man t-shirts, right? He's letting you know he's the hero of the story. He's playing a character. Okay, Felicia Mullins is the villain. She's the nasty person. Now, the real story was, the real victims in that story were adults that dressed as underage girls or underage kids. You know, because that's what Felicia Mullins was saying, that they should be bullied, not given endorsements. They were the victims. But Danesh didn't run with that, because Danesh knew that that's not going to drum up a crowd of people. So he looked at Dylan Mulvaney and said, well, Dylan Mulvaney's trans, so I'm going to say she's trying to bully trans people. So he's widened the net of potential people that will be upset by shifting the narrative to now the victims are trans people. We saw the same thing with Sarah Comrie, Danesh and Tiziant, both playing the hero. Sarah Comrie was the villain. The black community as a whole were the victims of Sarah Comrie, even though the story was Sarah Comrie had taken out that bike. This is fact. And those kids felt they were entitled to it because one of them had been riding it earlier and redocked it. Now, Tiziant even went as far as to use Emmett Till as a prop in this story to drum up more outrage, using black trauma to get the black community upset at Sarah Comrie. He was triggering their past traumas. Because as we know, Emmett Till, 70 years ago, was falsely accused by a white woman. Her boyfriend and his friends went and murdered him. He was 14 years old, I believe, and they got away with it. So he was using that black trauma to make Sarah Comrie even more of a villain. Danesh did another thing. He said that she was trying to get the black teens murdered. Now, this is how easy they can shift these narratives. So if Sarah Comrie was an African-American woman, the black teens were white teens, they would have shifted the villain and the victims here. They would have made the African-American Sarah Comrie would have been the victim, okay? So it's still in line with, it's the black community again. But the white teens, they would have called them white men, were picking on African-American Sarah Comrie and not allowing her to use the bike, and they would have brought up stuff from the 1950s. Remember where there was like places where coloured people had to sit? They would have brought all that up. They'll just change the narrative. So the way they structure their videos is there's a hero. It's usually them. This is why you've seen content creators on TikTok talk about how their hands must be getting really hot from constantly patting themselves on the back. They're playing the hero.
I understand that you all are just trying to help, but please don't ever tag these people in my comments. I don't condone what they do. I don't follow them. In no way am I seeking to emulate them. This is a one-time thing. I know that you all are just trying to boost the signal. You can do that by tagging literally anybody who you think will care about this issue, who has not also attempted to establish themselves as the moral compasses of TikTok. And it's not that they've never done any good, but the number of times that call-out creators on TikTok have had to walk back their shit because they jumped the gun, they put their feet in their mouths, like whatever it is, that I know they're doing their best, but at the same time, you gotta know that the palms of their hands are burning from constantly patting themselves on the back. So just please leave them out of it. We can do this ourselves. Thank you.
They're picking a villain, and they're really picking very well who the victims are, and they try to make it a race issue. They'll try to make it a gender issue. Now, what we just saw with Savannah Sparks, right? Now, Savannah Sparks made herself out to be the hero because she was doing this work. The victim, she made the victim her own child because the police pointed the rifles at her kid, which is not true. Okay, that's not true. The villains in this were the police, were the person who called in the phony swatting who wrote the phony swatting emails, and also more than likely the person that left that comment. They were the villains, her child was the victim, and she was the hero in the story, because Savannah Sparks knows full well if she tried to put herself as the victim, people are going to laugh because there's a lot of people that want to see her get stabbed to death anyway. Danesh knows the same thing. See, back in the day, what Savannah Sparks used to do is she used to put little Danesh in the victim thing. You know, he's a Middle Eastern brown man, they're picking on my best friend. She used to pretend they were best friends, right? She was the hero, he was the victim, which he loves to play, and everybody that was calling him out or them out were the villains. Now, even Danesh, he's shifted the narrative now, because back when this court case first went through, you'll probably remember, he was saying that anybody that supported it was supporting white supremacy, was supporting white supremacists. He didn't drum up enough of a crowd. So he shifted the narrative. He put himself in the hero position. He's put his children in the victims' positions. And he's put everybody that supports the court case and the plaintiffs as the villains. And he's saying, if you support this court case against me, you are supporting my child stalker. So he's victimizing his own kids, even though he has no proof his children are being stalked, because there is none. He's shown none. He needed to use them as a tool, just like Savannah Sparks uses her own kid as a tool. This is disgraceful. And anyone that supports that, you are supporting people who abuse their own children. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about the drama triangle, because we are seeing it played out constantly throughout this whole thing. Even people at the bottom. I know a lot of people at the bottom with these junky fucking fake conservatives, and they're group A and B, and they're doing these back and forth things. I used to talk to these people, and I could see the drama triangle being played out in my DMs the entire time, because the large majority of these people fall in space one. That's victimhood. Okay, now the hallmarks of a professional victim is they never take responsibility for anything, and when they do, it's self-serving. Okay, now the hallmarks of a savior or a rescuer is that they actually take too much responsibility, so they'll blame themselves for the actions of others. Okay, but they're equally as toxic, because they need to be saving somebody, because when they're not saving somebody, they actually have low self-esteem and they feel worthless. So these two personality types, usually rooted in childhood trauma, they are like a moth to a flame to one another. the old saying, opposites attract. They attract one another and they have these extremely toxic relationships, be it whether they're romantic relationships or be it online relationships, friendships, working relationships. These two go together like peas and carrots. Now, what we are seeing with Danesh, and I know a lot of people would think Danesh is a savior. Danesh is not a savior. Danesh is in victimhood. Okay, he's playing out his little boy fantasy online by pretending to be a hero. Okay, Danesh off screen, 99% of the time would be in victimhood. So what that might look like is his wife comes home, Danesh is sitting on his ass, on his phone, the kids are like sitting in their room watching TV or whatever the fuck, and she's like, did you take the kids out? And Danesh should be like, oh no, I forgot. And she's like, but I've told you to take the kids out, because Danesh doesn't work. His wife works. And Danesh would fly straight into victimhood because that's his natural resting spot, is victimhood. And he'd be like, I'm under so much stress with everything that's going on. And then in the blink of an eye, he would move up into the persecutor position. And he might be like, and you are not helping me. You are not doing anything. You can see how stressed I am and you do nothing. And then he'll move down into the savior position. This is all in a blink of an eye. And he'll be like, everything I do is for this family. It's for you. It's for our kids. And then he'll go back to his little resting spot as the victim and say, I'm under all this stress. I'm so stressed out because of everything that's happening to me and it's not fair. Now, the reason I can safely say that Danesh falls in victimhood is because when he's playing the savior in his videos, he's got his little Spider-Man shirt on and he's playing out this embellished melodrama, which was what he actually said in the response to his lawsuit. He actually said it was embellished melodrama. He's told you that this is what he's doing, right? This is fiction. The drama triangle is played out in stories because it's fictional. Okay, and I'll get more into that. But the reason I know he's in victimhood is because when he gets called out for making a mistake, which he never fucking apologizes for, is his first point of call is victimhood. He'll say he's a Middle Eastern brown man and 9/11 and all these things. And then he'll shoot up to persecutor mode and he'll start falsely accusing people that are calling him out of being white supremacists. Of, if you say that, you call a Middle Eastern person a terrorist, that's a hate crime. He'll say things like that. And then he'll bounce around to his hero thing again. He goes, this is why my platform's so important. And I do this for free and all this sort of shit. He's playing the hero. And then he'll go back to his little victim-y spot. And, I'm a Middle Eastern brown guy. He's noticed that hasn't worked much. So now he's putting his kids there, which is very fucking disturbing. But one thing you will notice with the people in the lower end, the people that are still playing these stupid games, and the reason I tell you to stop doing it because it's never going to stop, is you are dealing with professional victims. So here's a scenario for you that I know you've all dealt with. You've woken up one morning to a notification, you've gone on the TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, and another creator has made a video out on you falsely accusing you of something, right? They've gone in, this is a professional victim who's gone into persecutor mode to make false allegations against you. Yeah. They're expecting you to respond because they want to get back down to victimhood. Desperately. They do not want to stay in persecutor. They want to get back down to victimhood. So when you respond, it doesn't matter what you say. They will interpret that to make themselves the victims. Here's an example for you. Z-Man was a guy I dealt with a while ago. He was the victim of Savannah Sparks and a lot of nasty rumors that weren't true by victim-y women. In one instance, this woman contacted Z-Man and said, I'm very afraid of you because of all the rumors that are going around. I've sent you an email and it has my real name on it. I'm scared. And he said, you have no reason to be scared. The rumors aren't true. And he actually went back through his emails and he found the original email and he screenshot it and sent it to her. And he said, besides that, your name's not here. Now that should have been it, but it wasn't. Because she's victim-y. She turned around and went, oh my God, you've kept the email? That's so creepy. She spun it back onto him. So when you respond to these people, you are giving them the opportunity to go back down into victimhood. This is why you should never respond. And people started doing that. They started taking my advice and not responding to these people. And we saw something very interesting happen. A lot of these people started making fake accounts to troll themselves. and then blame the person and say this is their troll account, because they weren't able to get from persecutor back down to victim, which is where they want to be. It's all subconscious. It's all their subconscious. They don't even realize they're fucking doing it. And this is why I tell you, never respond to these people. The only way you can get out of these toxic relationships, if you're stuck in the drama triangle bouncing around with people where you are accusing somebody, they're accusing you, you're playing the hero, you're doing all this shit, the only way out of that is to leave. You cannot repair that relationship. You need to leave. And this is what we've been seeing played out on social media. Now, I know for a fact Danesh is a victim. He's a very victim-y man, and he's playing out his fantasies of being a hero. And I think the real reason Danesh puts a lot of stank on his attacks on women is he resents them, because his mother has been his savior, and now his wife is his savior. They're the ones saving him. If he didn't have those two women in his life, he'd be homeless. He wouldn't be able to support himself, because he's a very lazy man. So I think that is really the real reason why we see him go after women so viciously. So just to go back on the content style that these creators are making, and the drama triangle was played out in fictional things. Now, the style of content I make is more in line with either news or true crime, because I'm not playing the hero in my stories. I am just giving you the facts of the stories. That is purely it. You know, if you go and look at that chapter, Mike is a guy who hosts it. He's not playing the hero when he's telling these stories. You look at Mr. Ballin when he's telling the stories. He's not playing the hero. He's just telling the stories and he's going by the facts. But he does a really, really good job of making it feel like you're there. That is more in line with true crime. So people who think that Danesh and Savannah are investigative journalists are wrong. The way they format their videos is very much in line with fiction. That's not how people who are investigative journalists in general, they don't format their videos like that. They don't structure their videos like that. You know, people in true crime don't structure their videos like that. Now, there are times where there is a hero in a case. It might be the mother that wouldn't rest until she brought her daughter's murderer to justice. It could be the detective that, you know, he retired. He spent 20 years tracking down that serial killer. You do get that, but it's rare. It's not every episode. Now people always point out how Danesh and Savannah have done good things, right? Okay, now they have tracked down people that were racist in public, but how often are those incidences happening? I've counted something like 4 or 5 times a year. You can't build a platform off that. So they've had to use filler content. So they've had to keep the same structure of hero, damsel in distress, and villain. So they've just created these narratives on random strangers. Now, you could be someone sitting at home, you hate my guts because I'm pointing out the obvious with these people, and that's fair enough. And you could totally agree with the consequences for some people is to get fired from their jobs, maybe be evicted, maybe lose their kids. Now, in some instances, I would agree with you. Like if there's a man or woman or whoever the fuck living in, state-funded housing who's abusing the residents, yeah, boot that person out. If someone's abusing their kids, take their kids off them. If somebody is abusing their power in a job and they've got a lot of power, yeah, get rid of them. I agree with you. But when Danesh is covering these things and pointing out, now, when you're covering these things and pointing these things out, and that's the action you want to take against these people, they're the consequences you want to mete out to these people, you need to be 100%, you need to be 100% sure. You can't guess. And what are we seeing with Danesh and Savannah Sparks' videos? They're embellishing who the victims are, number one. Number two, their circumstantial evidence usually is their capabilities of mind reading. Here's an example. Danesh will point out what somebody has written and he'll say, no, you really meant this.
After spending 24 hours trying to reassure us that she is not at all bothered by all the bullying she encouraged, she is now trying to walk it back and saying, no, she was never talking about trans people and that she supports trans people. She was talking about men pretending to be children. So here's the overwhelming evidence that she's lying. First piece of evidence is her comment here saying that this is all about Bud Light's piss poor campaign, meaning this is aimed at Dylan Mulvaney. who is trans. This is about trans people, like she said from the beginning. More evidence that she was lying. Here you go right here. Has it ever been more apparent while standing in line to vote who is Democrat and who is Republican? Here's a hint. Us Republicans still know what a woman is. So, that just means, hello, my name is Felicia. I'm a horrible transphobe.
But that's not what they said or wrote. So Danesh is using his mind-reading capabilities to get to that conclusion of this circumstantial evidence that he's using against someone to say that they're a racist or a transphobe or whatever the fuck it may be. That's circumstantial evidence of Danesh and Savannah's ability to read minds, when we know that they will structure the narrative of who the victims are to reach the widest demographic, to make it the most sympathetic as well. This is why they love using their own kids, because they're trying to really dig into your sympathy for a child or the black community or the trans community. They're doing this intentionally because, unfortunately, normal life really isn't that exciting. So they've jazzed it up. But so if you're going to sit there and pretend that Danesh and Savannah are investigative journalists and it's all like similar to true crime, you're fucking completely wrong. The way they format and structure their videos is very in line with fiction. I've just broken it down for you. Okay, so I might talk more about that. I might actually break it down more in the future about the drama triangle and the way he's using it in his content. He'll probably start shifting his content pretty soon. I don't see how he can get away from that, though. That's what makes his content somewhat interesting, is the fact that they've formatted their content like that. They've structured their content like that. So there's a clear hero in the story, there's a clear villain in the story, and there's clearly victims. You can't really get away from that. And the types of, like, I love when they layer their shit with classical music, like it's sophisticated content. It is like the worst neighborhood in the worst trailer park of America, this content. It is absolute garbage, and the people who support it are fucking stupid. Now, if you are a supporter of his and you keep coming over and watching my videos, there's nothing I can teach you. You're a moron. The only thing I can teach you is that second guess yourself, understand that you were stupid, and that you're 30, 40, 50 years old now, you're probably never going to get any smarter. So just when you see a video online, whether it's Danesh's or someone else's, that first instinct you get to contact the person in the videos, just second guess it and understand that the brain you have is a moron's brain, and any decision you make is probably the wrong one. Maybe I'll see you in the next one. Maybe I won't. If you're one of Danesh's supporters, fuck off.